Hello, welcome back for another episode of Top Rope Takes following the Monday Night Raw after War Games. I'm Jason Marcus alongside Willie Thrill and Will. It's a new day, whether you like it or not. A lot to talk about on this past episode of Monday Night Raw, but obviously the biggest story out of it is this breakup, if you call it, of the New Day. It's definitely one of the more emotional segments that we've seen on Monday Night Raw in a long time. I want to get your thoughts on that and get your thoughts on everything on this show. I thought it was a really good show overall.
Yeah, no, this show is great. It is a sad day. Yes, it
Yeah,
is.
it's a new
Because
but sad day.
man, that segment definitely got me right here. I was not expecting them to go in that direction. I can't wait to talk about it. But overall, pretty solid show as far as getting, you know, looking forward to Saturday night's main event and also what we could see coming up at around WrestleMania season. So I'm excited.
Yeah, a lot of different story beats, a lot of wheels in motion, which I think has, been the calling card for this Triple H era where he really is like got his finger on the pulse of a lot of different aspects of the show. There doesn't really feel like there's one aspect that's kind of being like ignored a little bit. I think it's in a really, really good spot heading into the Netflix deal and Saturday Night's main event and the road to WrestleMania. So this is definitely a time where in the middle of the year, like the post WrestleMania, like honestly post SummerSlam, Fallout can be a little bit of a lull period. Feels like we're kind of coming out of that now, and we really are shaping up to end the year on a high note. And then once January comes, it's going to be full speed ahead.
100%.
So let's get right into the big thing everyone wants to talk about: the dissolution of the New Day. We it was a 10-year anniversary celebration on this past Monday Night Raw. I thought it was really cool that they had all the artifacts from the past 10 years that they had still in the warehouse. You had the big Booty-O cereal from WrestleMania 32. You had Xavier Woods' King of the Ring stuff, the trumpet, Francesca, just all like the items from their past spread out on the entrance ramp. It kind of looked like a museum for the New Day. Obviously, there's been tension for weeks now. I honestly, in my opinion, think the New Day stuff has been the single most intriguing thing on Raw for the last 2 months, or if not more. And so this was kind of the culmination of all of that. The build, I think the big swerve here was not so much. I think everyone was kind of expecting a heel turn, right? But I think the big shock was that Kofi's on board too. Is that Kofi is also on the same page as Xavier Woods because they haven't been for weeks. And the ironic part of it all, Will, is that everybody expected Big E to be here for the 10-year anniversary, right? And I don't think anyone was really shocked to see Big E here. But I think everyone assumed that Big E was going to get be here and get them all on the same page. And in a way, he did. But they were against him. So he got Xavier and Kofi Kingston to be on the same page. Unfortunately, it's a different book than the one he's on. And what a heartbreaking segment to see after 10 years. But the friends, you know, we've always said this in pro wrestling, and this has been documented that the New Day, there's such a trope in pro wrestling that tag teams will and factions will always eventually break up and turn on each other. And someone's always got to be the Shawn Michaels, and someone's always got to be the Mark Jannetty of the group. But the New Day have gone on record saying they never want to break up. Now, I don't know if this is what you call a breakup. Maybe this is just a rough patch, whatever. But they pulled the trigger on the 10-year anniversary. And I can't help but find it a little bit poetic that on the 10-year anniversary of the New Day, they go back to their roots and they are heels again for the first time in 10 years, which is what they started as. So an emotional segment, certainly one that a lot of people were not happy with, and other aspects they were. But what a great segment! And I think it's if you look at it as a whole, I think it's the only call you can make for the New Day because just doing what they've been doing for the past 10 years isn't going to work anymore, and they needed a new fresh coat of paint. And I think this is the best decision for everybody.
Yeah, no, this segment was incredible just from start to finish. I feel like they really played into the fact that people thought Big E was going to return and bring this group together because for the beginning part of the segment, it went pretty much how I think most people would have expected it to. And not saying it was bad in any way, shape, or form. I thought it was actually incredible, some of the stuff. The fact that even though there was tension, they were able to look back at, the memories of the New Day and be like, we did some awesome stuff. And for Big E to come out and say some really heartfelt stuff about how Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston were there when he had when he had that neck injury. And they were there for important moments where Kofi's kid was born and Biggie was able to hold him. And Xavier Woods got his childhood dream of becoming King of the Ring. And Biggie was there, while Xavier Woods was crying on his shoulder because he finally did something that he's always wanted to accomplish. That stuff was great. And you said it, like when Xavier Woods starts to be like, now you want to enter the fold, you're kind of like, okay, well, you would have rather wanted to see them come together. Cause I thought that was like, even though I saw a possibility of a heel turn, I was like, I think the main thing is they bring them all together and they just kind of reunite as the New Day. Exactly what Biggie pitched. Like if he's not medically clear, he's the manager. These two are back on the same page as faces and they go after the tag titles. Then when Kofi steps in, it's like, whoa, okay, we're going in a completely different direction. I think it caught everyone off guard when Kofi was laying into Biggie and saying some really hurtful stuff about how like Steve Austin broke his neck, he came back.
Mm-hmm.
Kurt Angle broke his neck, he came back. Edge broke his neck, he came back, and they didn't have anyone to return to. You had two guys they were waiting for your return, and then Wood steps in with the torn Achilles. He tore it straight off the bone. Actually had to have surgery, unlike Biggie, and he came back in 9 months to help out Biggie.
Mm-hmm.
All of that stuff was great. I'm going to push back a little bit on one thing you said, where it comes full circle in the fact that they started as heels, they ended as heels. If you remember the debut of the New Day, they were supposed to be baby faces. It just completely floundered.
Got it.
And people did not expect people did not want to see any of this because they thought the New Day, when they first originally formed,
Yeah.
that it was going to be this like sort of new Nation of Domination faction where
Like a really
three,
positive, like, yeah.
but like a weird spin on it. But then they came out and they were like overwhelming baby faces and no one was here for it. It became so over the top that in the months to come, that's when they started to not care, become heels. And in a way, them becoming heels made them the biggest baby faces as the
Right.
year went on because they were just being absolutely ridiculous, being themselves, being super entertaining, and really being the highlight of that 2015 year because there was a lot of rough stuff in that 2015 year, but they really stuck out as like the MVPs
Mm-hmm.
of 2015. But where I will agree with you is that they did come full circle in a sense because that original promo that Xavier Woods did to bring together Kofi Kingston and Big E when they were floundering as kind of mid-card level acts, it did come full circle here where they were dressed up to the nines and they
Mm-hmm.
were wearing the suits that Xavier Woods was wearing when he first approached them in that original promo saying, you guys, we need to come together and be one and really step our game up. So I thought that was a nice touch. And the fact that, like you said, they do get on the same page. Finally, Kofi and Woods are on the same page, but it's met with just absolutely, the loudest boos you could think of.
Yeah.
And by the way, this crowd was awesome tonight. I love
Yeah.
Everett Washington. Shout out to them. They really brought it. They were like everything Kofi would say. They're like, oh, what? Oh, and I was like, yeah, I'm with you. Like, this
Yeah.
is an awesome crowd for this segment. And the fact that they were able to come together, but at the expense of one of the most beloved characters in the past decade in WWE, Big E,
Mm-hmm.
really left people like, well, this is what we wanted, but we don't want to see it like this. We didn't want to see them come together. So
Right.
I'm very excited for this new direction for the New Day. And, I hope this is just like the start of an incredible run for the New Day. Like I'm thinking new music. You got to get new
Oh yeah.
music for sure. New presentation. Do they go with a new name? I don't know. But I am looking forward to what they do. What do you think their road looks like on the road to WrestleMania? Because I have a few ideas, but I want to
Oh,
hear what you
okay.
think about what your plan would be for the New Day going forward.
I haven't really given it too much thought, so you're kind of putting me on the spot here. Um, I would certainly think with a big drastic change like this, making them heels. I agree with the new music, the new presentation. Like, I still think you call them the New Day. I don't think that needs to change. I would imagine that they're gonna be in the tag title picture come WrestleMania. So if we are under the assumption that War Raiders are gonna win the titles from JD and Finn because it feels like that they have enough going on and why I would imagine maybe it's War Raiders and New Day at WrestleMania. I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's too soon of a poll. It seems like you've thought about this more though, so maybe you have an idea and I can get inspired by that.
I do have a few ways they can go with this. Because I do think you don't want it to be a case where you want the New Day to win the tag titles. I feel like if they go up against the War Raiders, who have kind of been a lukewarm tag team since
Yeah.
returning, you're going to have a section of the audience that wants to see the New Day win the titles. So unless the tag team is on someone who you absolutely don't want to see lose the tag titles, then I would steer clear of that. I think I think the obvious route is not as exciting, but I think the way that they're kind of probably going to go is an eventual feud with the Wyatt Six,
Oh,
where
okay.
because they've been like in when they were doing this feud, there were times when the Wyatt Six would cut in during Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods arguing. So I feel
Hmm.
like there's something to that, and it makes sense with the way that they've approached like breaking up families and such.
Yes.
It was actually one of the things I speculated early when they were going after their next opponents. I was like, well, it's probably going to be the Miz, but there is a chance that it's the New Day. But it didn't make a lot of sense because the Wyatt Six were deemed as faces and the New
Right.
Day were still faces. Now that they're fully heel, I mean, I feel like that's the opening that the Wyatt Six needs to find. And they also did push Big E away from the family.
Yeah.
So I think that's like the obvious route. The reason why I'm not super thrilled about it is because I haven't been like overwhelmed with what they've done since their debut. Like I think
Yeah.
they've I feel like you're kind of stuck in a like a void almost if you do end up feuding with them where they kind of can't step outside. But I do think Xavier Woods would thrive in that environment because I remember those feuds that he had with the original Wyatt family where he was really able to play up his fear of Bray Wyatt and how, serious he had to get in order to take on the Wyatt family. So I think there is a chance that it could still work out if they go that route, but it's not necessarily the one I'm interested in.
Yeah, my only pushback with that would be I'm trying to imagine how that feud looks like just from like a numbers perspective because it's like um four guys on the Wyatt Six side versus just Kofi and Xavier.
Well, that's the thing. What did Xavier Woods say as Big E walked away? When we need you, we'll call you. For now, go back to your desk job. One night, by the way, there was a line that Xavier Woods said that was key to me where he said, "You'll never be medically cleared," which makes me think he's definitely medically cleared. I think ultimately what the Wyatt Six feud would do is them ultimately breaking down and saying, you know what? We made a mistake. We actually do need Big E. And that is the actual reunion of the New Day finally coming together and being like, you know what? We were wrong. We need to reconcile because the reason why
Yeah,
the Wyatt Six are going after them in the first place is because they broke up the family. Maybe the thing to get rid of the Wyatt Six is to reunite the family.
right. Okay.
So that's the angle I think it would take as far as the numbers perspective. I definitely understand where you're coming from. Um, but then you have to wonder: is that like a double turn? Then does like once New Day reunites with Big E, does the Wyatt Six become heels in that sense? It's an interesting little thing they have to work out. But I think that would be the direction they go in.
Mhm.
I've heard some people throw in New Day triple threat at Mania, and I think that would kind of be a tough road to get to as far as
Mhm.
breaking up Kofi and Wood. I mean, obviously there's tension between Kofi and Woods, but I think now that you've had them come together on this Big E thing, I think it'd be tough. Here's like my pitch,
Mhm.
and there's actually two ways you could go about it. My loose pitch was similar to what they did in 2015, where the New Day invades the main event scene on Raw.
Mhm.
Like it'd be crazy if the New Day, like I remember that segment where the New Day came out during like a John Cena Open challenge and like had Dolph Ziggler out cold. And then they took out everyone that was involved in the main event of Raw and they
Mhm.
stood tall at the end. It'd be interesting if they like decided to invade a scene where you get a confrontation with like Punk and Kingston who have a rich history together. Or like the New Day invades a Seth Rollins match, or like just some high profile guy to kind of elevate them and say, this isn't the New Day that was stuck in the mid card for the past
Right.
few years. This is a new day. quite literally, in that these guys are on a higher level and they want to take out whoever. I think
Hmm.
that would be a good way to establish them at the top. I think my main pitch, though, and my top rope take for today
Okay, here we go.
is at the Royal Rumble,
Hmm.
Kofi Kingston starts out early, one or two, maybe even three, and he goes the distance.
Does he do his gimmicky thing where he does feet?
No,
Doesn't
and that's the thing. He avoids doing the gimmicky stuff. Where you think he might do it, he is
he?
now hanging on to the bottom. He can see. You might even see a loose chair on the outside. He goes, no, no, no. I'm hanging on to this bottom. He's like a different Kofi Kingston Rumble because he's like, I'm not doing this for the fans now. I'm
Yeah,
doing this to win the Royal Rumble. I'm
yeah.
not trying to do some flashy nonsense. He goes the distance, and number 30 is Big E, and that's the Big E return. And Big E tosses out Kofi to initiate a Big E versus Kofi Kingston match at WrestleMania.
Interesting. I don't hate it. I mean, I think if you're gonna go that route, I could see if they were gonna do it like a triple threat like that. I don't necessarily think it's likely, but I think if it's certainly an option if they did it for like an IC title or something like that. Like if somehow one of them got it and then like I don't know. I don't really think it's particularly likely. I do think that there will be some WrestleMania moment. Well, I don't know because it's already December. If could they get in my head? I'm like, oh, they're probably gonna do like a really feel good WrestleMania moment where they all come together and Biggie and yada yada yada. But that's only 4 months away. Is this really? Are they really? Is this only gonna be a 4 month heel turn? You know what I mean? Like this could be going on through WrestleMania.
Yeah, I mean, I do see it as like less of maybe a heel turn, more of just like a story beat in this whole
Okay.
thing. Because if you want to say as a heel, like Xavier Woods technically has been a heel for
Yes.
a few months, so it's not like this. It's really a Kofi Kingston heel turn, if anything.
Yeah.
And I feel like Kofi as a heel, as great as this segment was, isn't a long term thing you can do. Like
Yeah.
I think ultimately people want to cheer for Kofi Kingston.
Yeah.
And the only reason why I pitched the Rumble thing is because I've always wanted to see Kofi Kingston as like an Iron Man. Like I feel like
Mhm.
he's earned that spot, and it would really solidify himself as like they always tout him as one of the great Rumble performers, but like he
Yeah.
never outside of his flashy stuff, he never does well. So it'd be nice if he had one standout Rumble performance where he actually performs well and goes
Mhm.
a long way before initiating like some sort of WrestleMania match. And I don't even think if you do Big E versus Kofi with the length of the New Day and how great the storyline's been, I don't think there needs to be a title. I think it could
Yeah.
just simply be Big E's like return singles match. Like you could have him return at the Rumble, but don't have him wrestle until WrestleMania 1-on-1, Big E versus Kofi. Or if you want
Mhm.
to throw in Xavier, I don't know how you throw in Xavier Woods. That's why I'm kind of keeping him away from the picture. I think you may just have Woods in the corner of Kofi for that match. But then ultimately, after that match, you do get the handshake and the hug and the New Day come together. And then
Yeah.
that's your post WrestleMania angles. The New Day are back together and they want one last run as the tag champions.
I definitely think your idea with the wide six has the most legs. I could definitely see that. It'll be interesting to see what they do. I think it's very hard to predict, especially given we don't 100% know if Big E is never going to wrestle again. Um, so we'll see. But obviously, a monumental episode overall, a monumental point in the story of arguably the greatest tag team of all time. So, you know, well, it's a new day. We'll see where we go from here.
It is. And to reiterate, this might be like this is a late runner for segment of the year. Like this is
Hmm.
going to be in the conversation when I think of like segments or promos or whatever at the end of the year. This is up there. And this is probably in the past few years, honestly. Like I was hooked
Yeah.
with everything everyone was saying in this segment. I thought the performance of Big E was incredible. Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston really like leaned into just being terrible to Big E, which was
Hmm.
awesome. So just an absolute 10 out of 10 segment. And I'm looking forward to what they do. And me speculating about all this stuff just shows you how great this segment was. Because if you told me I was going to be speculating this much
Not
about
that
what the
new
New
day.
Day are going to do last year, I'd be like, you're crazy. They're not doing anything. So
Yeah. No, I agree. We'll see what happens. But it's it's anybody's game, which is what I like, right? I like the fact that I can't predict where it's gonna go because as sometimes wrestling is good when it's predictable, but most of the time it's at its best when it's not. There's a lot of other stuff on this episode of Monday Night Raw that we should talk about. Let's start. So obviously we got the big headline out of the way. Let's just go chronologically now and talk about how the show opens. So it opens with a CM Punk promo, who got the win for the OG Bloodline at Survivor Series War Games, and he's out there talking about how he knows what he wants, and it's kind of what I speculated on our War Games recap. He wants a world title shot, and he wants the main event WrestleMania. And this kind of brings out Seth Rollins, who is unhappy that CM Punk tagged with Roman Reigns. They get into a war of words. And then essentially this brings out Sami Zayn and Jey Uso to on behalf of Punk, essentially. And they kind of all go back and forth with each other. Sami Zayn has a nice line there about I didn't want to tag with CM Punk to Seth Rollins. Sammy says to Seth Rollins, I didn't even want to tag with CM Punk. I mean, you were my first choice, but you told me no on two separate occasions, to which Seth Rollins really has no reply. And I thought it was really good. It made a lot, everything made a lot of sense. And ultimately, it ends in the main event for Raw being booked for Sami Zayn versus Seth Rollins. We get teasers of a Punk Rollins feud that we know is coming at some point, whether or not it's happening now, whether or not it's happening in the distant future, I'm not sure. But Seth Rollins, Sami Zayn, main event for Monday Night Raw. What are your thoughts here, and where do you think CM Punk's next big match is going to be?
Well, I thought the segment was pretty interesting because we speculated that maybe the WrestleMania match would be Punk versus Roman, but
Mm-hmm.
clearly them inserting Rollins in this segment made it seem like, okay, no, we're definitely doing Punk Rollins, but how do we get there? But in this segment in particular makes me think that what you said a few times now, where it's probably going to be Gunther and Rollins at some point, maybe even at the beginning of Netflix or maybe at the Rumble. I think that might be the match where Seth Rollins wins and you get almost like I feel like they're turning Gunther babyface, but maybe
Mm-hmm.
like a double turn in a sense where Rollins cheats to win
Mm-hmm.
against Gunther and he becomes full heel going into his program with CM Punk and he can finally come back to CM Punk, who in the segment says, I don't, care
Mm-hmm.
about you. Like I've never thought about you. You've thought about me for 6 months. I don't care what you do. When we were, going back and forth at WrestleMania, you had something I wanted. Now you
Mm-hmm.
don't. So you mean nothing to me. I think Seth Rollins gets the belt to say, "Oh,
Mm-hmm.
now I have something you want. Come at me." Like
Right.
so I think that's what this kind of set up. I could also see it being maybe the other way where Punk wins the World Heavyweight Championship
Mm.
and Rollins wins the Rumble or the Elimination Chamber. And that's how he gets to finally get his hands on CM Punk.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, the dynamic between these two are awesome. Like, I feel
Yeah.
like Punk brings the best out of Rollins and vice versa. Rollins brings the best out of Punk. Like, I feel like Punk has some real, like, with the way he speaks to Rollins is real visceral, feels real. And that's what I loved about these two whenever they've interacted in the past. It really does feel like that tension is there, you
Yes.
know, even if they, buried the hatchet when Punk returned. But it just feels like there's still always like a lingering tension. And I even loved Sami Zayn's performance in this, where
Mm-hmm.
he was like, I didn't want a team with Punk, but he was there to help. And
Yeah.
you weren't. I wanted you, Rollins. Like, I thought Sami Zayn was really great. I thought Seth Rollins interacting with Sami Zayn was awesome, where it was like, Jey Uso's family. I get why he would want a team with Roman, but really, what's your excuse? They
Yeah.
kicked you to the curb and you just came back. Roman never really apologized. He's still the same Roman that he is. Just like, and that's what I've always wanted from WWE is like rewarding people for paying attention to your show.
Yeah.
It's like when there was an era where they would forget what happened last week. They're referencing stuff that's happened over the course of a decade. When
Yeah.
Sami Zayn brings up like you created the monster because you hit him with the chair originally, and Seth Rollins throwing it right back at Sami Zayn. You did the same exact thing, so don't come at me. And Seth Rollins was like, I don't even blame you for doing that, but
Yeah.
you realized then what kind of monster Roman was. So I can't believe that you've made the switch up just out of nowhere. And I thought it really led to a point where it set up the main event well in a natural way. A lot of these opening segments, you kind of are like, it feels forced setting
Yeah.
up the main event. This felt like, all right, well, we have nothing else to talk about. Let's just fight.
Yeah.
So overall, this was another great segment. And I think this, along with the New Day segment, made me like this is like one of the better Raws I think that they've had all year. Like this was
Yeah.
a solid as far as storytelling and segments. This was a great Raw for those two segments alone.
Yeah, I think what stood out for me about this entire Raw was that it's very clear that they have a direction. Nothing in this show felt directionless. Nothing felt like, oh, well, like it's very clear that they know where they're going. We don't know as an audience, which I think is great, but they clearly do. And that's what made me excited. Yeah, I thought this segment was great. I thought the Jey Uso stuff kind of is a little odd. Like, I think like the whole Jey Uso involvement, and we can talk about. I mean, he gets taken out later in the show, and we can pontificate about who we think did that. But like, I don't know. I think like, did he need to be in the segment? I'm not sure.
I think it did help as like a catalyst for what comes later. I think on the surface, when you first see him, you're kind of like, oh, what is he really doing out here? It's kind of whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
for him to get taken out and then bring out the fire in Sami Zayn because Sami
Mm-hmm.
Zayn thinks Seth Rollins did it, I think overall helped with the storytelling in this episode
Mm-hmm.
of Raw. So I didn't mind it when it was all said and done, but definitely when he came out, I'm like, okay, this is kind of weird. Because then it also took away from like the actual fight because fans were just chanting "Yeet"
Yeah,
instead of
yeah.
like being, into the Punk Seth stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Although that them scrapping, if that was another thing that made it feel real, is because it made it feel like it was actually like some two guys out on the street late at night, coming out of a bar, and they just need to settle their differences. That's kind of
Yeah,
how Punk and Rollins were brawling for a bit.
yeah.
Um, so yeah,
I thought it was good. Great segment. Great way to open the show. Um, I'm not sure what they do with CM Punk now because clearly, he's got Seth on the horizon. He's got Roman on the horizon. I do agree that I still, in my gut, feel like WrestleMania 41 is going to be Punk and Seth. Whether or not it's for the world title, I don't know. I think they get there though through Roman Reigns. Um, I think Punk and Roman has to happen first, and I would imagine when that does happen, look for Seth Rollins to get involved. So whether that it's an elimination chamber type thing, and that's how you get to the WrestleMania match, and that's the final straw, right? Punk and Roman and Toronto, and Seth comes out and screws Punk or something and sides with Roman. Finally, I don't know, but
seems
it
like a
would,
stretch based on how Seth was talking about Roman
yeah, maybe
in
not
this
sides with
segment.
Roman, but like, could it be a situation where he's trying to screw Roman and inadvertently screws Punk? Kind of like how Drew has been doing or
Interesting.
had done for like a year. There's so many directions you can go with it, but either way, that's clearly what I think is the end game for this.
I just think that I I I get what you're saying, but a Punk Roman to me is like WrestleMania. Like if you're not gonna do it at WrestleMania, then just save it. Like just have it
Mm-hmm.
in the back pocket. I did think Punk brought up some interesting stuff about the favor that he's owed from Paul Heyman because he made it seem like, yeah, I could win the Royal Rumble to get to where I want to go. Yeah, I could win the Elimination Chamber if that's where I want to go. But I also have this favor, and
Mm-hmm.
this favor can help me get to where I want to go as far as main eventing WrestleMania. So is the favor just simply like getting a title shot at any time, like we were kind of
Mm-hmm.
speculating on,
Mm-hmm.
or is it that uh he knows that Roman is the ticket to the main event, and so he has that favor where he could just say, Roman, it's me and you at
Mm-hmm.
WrestleMania, you have no
Yeah,
say in it because I made a deal with your wise man.
right. We will see. Anything else from this promo segment you want to talk about?
No, I just think, I want WWE to start building main events more like this because I
Mm-hmm.
originally thought when they announced like the full card for this, I was like, okay, well, New Day 10-year anniversary, that's clearly going to be the main event.
Yeah.
But this was an exciting way for me to be like, okay, they can have this match as the main event, and they also have a stacked like middle of the card thing with the New Day segment. So it's
Mm-hmm.
a nice, well-rounded show in that sense. So good on WWE for doing that, and I hope they continue to do that leading into WrestleMania season.
Absolutely. So we will get to the main event a little bit later between Sami Zayn and Seth Rollins and all the fallout from that. But right after this, we got the first of the triple threat match in the women's Intercontinental Championship tournament. Dakota Kai, Shayna Baszler, Katana Chance. A little bit of a surprising finish. Dakota Kai picks up the win, her first like real singles victory in what seems like forever. So clearly, she has been talking about needing support, and I guess she's getting some support now. So big win for Dakota Kai. The crowd were behind her win. I think they're just excited to see somebody new win. I'm still on the team of they could be doing so much more with Shayna Baszler, but clearly, as long as she's in the Pure Fusion Collective, she is a bottom feeder in this division. Um, I also like Katana Chance. I don't like her name, but I think she's talented. She's a potential to be a good babyface. But overall, solid match. Happy for Dakota Kai. Do I think she's winning the whole tournament? No, but it's a start.
Well, let me ask. I do want to ask you, who do you think is going to win the tournament? Because I was looking at this bracket and it exposed the Raw women's roster so badly. Like it
Mm-hmm.
is a rough bracket. Whereas like SmackDown one, there was a few people where it's like, okay, well, maybe Chelsea Green can win, or maybe Bailey has a shot, or there's a lot
Yeah,
of people who I thought could have had a chance. Tiffany Stratton's in the bracket. And so when they announced this bracket, and I don't think Raquel was on the bracket, right? Am I correct in that?
I'm looking it up right now because I
Okay.
don't know offhand.
I thought I
So,
saw I saw Lyra Valkyria, Kaden Carter, Natalia was on there. The other pure Ivy Nile was in one of the brackets. It was kind of rough
all
looking.
right, so you ready? I have
So with
this.
that said, I was like, who else could win? I mean, I Dakota Kai honestly has as good a shot as anyone in this
Yeah.
bracket, if I'm being honest. But I really don't know who's they're gonna pick as the winner.
So let's go through this real quick. So we know Dakota Kai won the first one. The next set of triple threat matches is Lyra Valkyria, Zelina Vega, and Ivy Nile. I think we're both on the same page. Lyra Valkyria is the only option there, right?
Yeah, one hundred
Okay.
percent.
So then the other one
Oh no, they do
is
have Raquel. Okay,
Zoe
Raquel.
Stark, Raquel Rodriguez, and Kaden Carter. You could go with Zoe or Raquel. I'm actually not sure which one they would go with. I think because Raquel's tied up in the live stuff. Although you had brought up, I think it was the couple episodes ago, you brought up the idea of having Raquel win the Intercontinental title and Liv holding the world title and then kind of going. So certainly could be either one of those two. You got to
And
figure.
they, yeah. I did
No,
not. Sorry, continue. I'll bring it up later.
no, I was going to say. I mean, it could go either way there. Um, there's not a ton of options, but there is a bunch of options that they could go with. Natalia's in the next one, so I think they give her a win. But I think this is going to come down to Lyra Valkyria clearly from the right side, and whoever they have wanting to win on the left. So I think it's gonna. I think your finals is going to be either Lyra Valkyria and Raquel Rodriguez, or Lyra Valkyria and either like a Zoe Stark or Dakota Kai with Lyra wins. I think it's either. My point is it's either Lyra or Raquel. It's one of those two.
Yeah, I agree. I do. Yeah, because at that point, I don't see Dakota Kai winning. I guess the argument that was because I was listening to another podcast and they were
Mm-hmm.
like going through this bracket and they were quickly like, "Oh yeah, Zoe Stark's gonna win the triple threat," and I didn't really hear who else was in the bracket, so I'm like, when I heard everyone else's name, I'm like, "Oh, where's Raquel?" But
Yeah,
I think their argument was like, you don't want to have Raquel get pinned at all. And so the way you could do that is have Zoe pin Kaden Carter, I guess, and then that
right.
way you do face versus heel, but keep Raquel out of the IC title picture. I think this is Raquel's to lose. Like I think
Mm-hmm.
like Raquel's probably to me the favorite, and I'm still gonna rock with my pitch now that I know she's definitely in this tournament. That it's gonna be her and Liv holding the world title, the IC title, and eventually if they don't bring back Jade Cargill anytime soon, the tag titles as
Yeah,
well. And you get that visual of them holding all the belts, especially because, as we'll see later on, they get a big tag win. So they have the
yeah.
momentum.
Yeah, I agree. Speaking of that tag win, they do defeat the team of Io Sky and Kyrie Sane on Raw. Raquel picks up the win there, pinning Kyrie Sane. This leads to a brawl where Rhea Ripley comes out and makes a save, only for her to be taken out by Raquel Rodriguez. And next week on Raw, we are getting a muscle mommy fest between Raquel Rodriguez and Rhea Ripley.
Okay. It's like, where's he going
Yeah.
with this? All right. Yeah, sure enough. Yeah.
Yeah, Raquel versus Rhea. Aren't you excited?
I mean, yeah, it's cool.
All right.
I'm sure a lot of people are like all the muscle mommy fans out there are going to
Yeah,
be going crazy for it,
it's gonna be
which
great.
by the way, I am a fan of the muscle mommies, but I
Put that
think
down.
at this point with how this feud's been going, I'm just not really interested in this Rhea Ripley, Liv Morgan dynamic anymore. I think it kind of got drawn out since like really like what was it like bad when did they bring him back? Bad Blood when they
Bring back
introduced
Rhea.
Raquel? No, Raquel.
Raquel was Bad Blood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I feel like at that after that, I was kind of over Bash Berlin too when they did the mixed tag. But
Yeah.
when they did that, I was kind of like, okay, they need to wrap this up
Yeah.
sooner than later. And yeah, I mean, I hope it's not the direction for Mania, but I could see them easily drawing this out till Mania and doing the big.
Oh no, I don't think they draw it out till WrestleMania. I can't do 4 more months of this. This needs to
I mean,
end.
no, I'm telling you, I hope not. But like, I just they love their long term stories in some senses. So
No, 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 no. They can't.
if they don't have a good opponent enough opponent for Rhea, then this is probably the direction they're going.
Yeah. Who is Rhea's opponent? Do we think?
For
Like,
WrestleMania,
well, I guess it just in general, like after Liv, like who she go to? Is he? Maybe that's the issue. Is that like
well, I have an answer. I have a great answer for this because I heard an idea. I'll give credit to Not Sam Wrestling for this one.
okay?
Pitching Rhea versus Dominic for WrestleMania. That's
I
the big
actually don't
match.
think that's a bad idea. I
I think
actually
that's
think
awesome. I think that is like the ultimate like build up you could do out of this whole feud. If this feud ends with Rhea versus Dominic, then it was all worth. Then
yeah,
I'll be like fine, whatever. Um,
that
but
would be so
it'd be
on
fun.
brand.
Yeah, it'd be a great time.
The visual Rhea pinning Dominic at WrestleMania.
100%.
I love it. Okay, so after all this stuff here, we had the New Day stuff, which we already talked about here. We then go into a match where Gunther goes one on one with Dominic Mysterio,
Hey,
as we just mentioned. Finn Balor plays a big role into this whole thing as well because Finn is vying for a World Heavyweight Championship match. He tells Gunther, you've beaten Damian Priest twice because of me. I deserve a shot. Gunther's like, I wanted to do it on my own. You took it away from me. And then Gunther's like, you know what? I'm feeling generous. And then he's like, who did pin Damian Priest? Dominic Mysterio. And for that reason, you're going to get a shot tonight. So there we have it. Gunther versus Dom, not for the title, just a regular match on Raw. And Gunther makes quick work of Dirty Dom here. But he is attacked by Finn Balor. And we, after the fact, get that Adam Pearce makes it official. Gunther defending the world title against Finn Balor at Saturday night's main event. So we now have two world title matches on the cards for Saturday night's main event, shaping up to be a big pay per view. It's not even a pay per view, but it's a big show. Um, yeah, I thought this was okay stuff. Gunther's, I think the Judgment Day stuff is kind of getting a little old, and the Gunther definitely needs something. I know we're trying to talk us into like moving him to a babyface. I think he's so much better as a heel, and I think that's actually part of the reason is like him versus Damian Priest. I just felt like was lukewarm because I think Damian Priest is lukewarm, and then him where he's clearly the face in this Finn Balor stuff. Just doesn't do a ton for me. I think the matchup on paper is exciting, Gunther versus Finn, because I just think the clash of styles is, um, it's going to be a hard hitting match. But I'm basically what I'm trying to say is I'm ready for Gunther John Cena.
yeah, I guess if that's the direction, but I still that makes me confused as to why they're temporarily making him a babyface for
Mm-hmm.
this feud. I figured you want to kind of keep the heel momentum going.
Right.
I don't know why they're doing this at all because especially considering the fact that Finn Balor has only won one singles match all year, and it was against Dragon Lee in June. So, like,
Mm-hmm.
how does that give him any credibility? And it's funny because it's actually a full circle moment for me as a wrestling fan and content creator here. Because when I was like kind of in and out of making videos, I released this video to Twitter and it was like an exclusive where I talked about the state of the championship matches in both WWE and AEW. Now, if you
Mm-hmm.
remember earlier this year, let's take you back in
Okay.
January, there's a big discourse between Hook and Jinder Mahal. And the argument was Hook has all these singles wins. Uh, and that was Tony Khan's argument for why he should be getting a world title match. And Tony Khan also threw shade at Jinder, saying Jinder hasn't won at all. Why is he getting a world heavyweight title match? And my conclusion to this was both people deserve a title match, and here's why. In AEW, they claim that, wins and losses matter. And I was actually glad that they gave Hook a title match because he had an insane win-loss record.
Hmm.
And even though he might not look the part of being a world champion, he should get rewarded for winning a lot of matches. So I was glad they did it in that aspect. With the Seth Rollins Jinder match, Seth Rollins was treating it as an open challenge. He was willing to take on all comers. And
Hmm.
Jinder Mahal answered the challenge. And he also was coming off a hot segment with The Rock. So I thought in both cases, they were good challengers and it made sense for both of them to challenge. Now, if either of them won the title, it would be a different story.
Right.
But people were going bananas for both sides, being like, oh, Hook doesn't deserve it. He looks like a scrawny loser, or Jinder doesn't deserve it. He hasn't won and whatever. I thought both were justified in that sense.
Hmm.
This one doesn't make sense at all because Gunther isn't the guy who's taking open challenges.
Yeah.
But I guess if you're going to quickly turn a babyface, then and make him like, oh yeah, I guess I'll take on Finn Balor because he attacked me. Like I don't buy it, and I also don't buy Finn as a credible challenger. So I think this whole thing is a flop,
Hmm.
and I think it's just a way for I don't know what it's for, like Gunther to get a title defense. But it seems like Gunther's going to get another title defense before he ends up losing the title in you know the
Hmm.
coming months before WrestleMania, which is upsetting because I would have wanted to see him as champ at WrestleMania, but clearly this world title run's been slowly on the decline since he
Yeah.
hasn't been able to face like a Seth Rollins or a CM Punk, or we've speculated on Goldberg or eventually John Cena. If he doesn't face any one of those, and he loses the title to either a Punk or a Rollins, I feel like this kind of was a messy title run for him, which is unfortunate because I think we would have wanted to see more coming off of that great Intercontinental Championship run from him.
Yeah, I agree. I don't put a lot of it though at the feet of Gunther. I think a lot of it has more to
Oh
do with
no,
the fact that it's a weak babyface pool, and you're only as good as the guy you're working with. So, Damian Priest is a tweener. He's a mid card act, in my opinion. But other than that, he hasn't had another big program. I don't think this is a big program either. I think this is an extension of the Damian Priest stuff. So this is, it'll be a fine match. I
but
fully expect Gunther to win, but
reason why I'm upset about it though, or I guess not upset, but I'm just like disappointed in it, is that like you say like you're only as good as your babyface challengers, and I agree, but there are baby faces on Raw that he could go up against that people would be into, like a
mhm,
Jey Uso, or even they had a great match with Sami Zayn, who's a compelling babyface. But
mhm.
mostly my point is guys like Seth Rollins and CM Punk are right there, and I know you don't want to necessarily have them lose, but you could, if the plan is Rollins versus Punk at WrestleMania, you could have one get involved in the other's title match, and it's still a strong showing for Gunther.
Yeah.
And it still elevates Gunther on that other level where he's been facing like upper mid carders throughout this title run, besides Randy Orton, who they would have never done the match in the first place if it weren't for the botch at King of the Queen of the Ring. So,
I will say this. I agree with you, but let's call a spade a spade. They're aware that they have CM Punk and Seth Rollins on their roster. They're gonna go there at some point with Gunther Punk and Gunther Rollins. I think they know when it's happening, and they just need to bide some time before they get there. I would say if after Saturday night's main event is over, if Gunther's next program is not with one of those four big names we talked about, then you have an issue. But I really think that after this whole we get through Saturday night's main event, this stuff is about to kick up, especially with Netflix in January. And I would fully expect Gunther's next challenger to be either Rollins or Punk.
I agree with you. I think that will be the direction. My point is just if that is the direction, and then they just give the title to Punk or Rollins or whoever he
Right.
faces, I think that would kind of make
That's
it
the
seem a
issue.
little more lackluster because like I would have wanted to see Gunther overcome one of those two to lead into his big WrestleMania match
Mhm.
instead of him losing the title and getting a lower profile match on the card.
Yeah.
So that's all.
We will see. I have full faith in Triple H, and I have full faith in his ability to book Gunther. So I would actually, at this point, take Gunther to beat both Rollins and Punk. And
Okay.
um, but I also agree with your point earlier about if Rollins it does beat him, that then goes back full circle with the Punk promo. So who knows? Again, that's why we like wrestling, right? There's so much to speculate about. Either way, so that match is made official for Saturday night's main event. After the fact, we also have a little bit of backstage promo where it looks like Braun Breaker and Ludwig Kaiser are not done with each other. So it looks like we will have an Intercontinental title match between those two in the near future. You had mentioned something earlier that about if they want to go full face with Gunther as a baby face. Could Kaiser be the one who turns on him to break out of his shadow and cost him the world title? I think that's a real possibility. But obviously, he's got to get through this Braun Breaker stuff first, and I don't foresee him winning the Intercontinental title there. But certainly something to put a pin in.
Yeah, I think if they do go full face with Gunther, then actually would expect that to be like the WrestleMania match, actually, is
Mhm.
Gunther versus Kaiser without the title. And have like, because I think, like I said before, it'd be like a Rollins Gunther kind of turn where I guess
Mhm.
Rollins would turn heel on Gunther as this new baby face. And then, maybe Gunther gets a rematch where Kaiser screws him.
Mhm.
And that's where you go with Gunther versus Ludwig Kaiser. I do kind of hope that Gunther would get a higher profile match at this year's WrestleMania than Ludwig Kaiser. No disrespect
Right.
to Kaiser, but I feel like doing Gunther versus Kaiser is a match more made for Kaiser than
Right.
Gunther. And I think Gunther has so much momentum that you kind of want him to face like a top tier guy
No, I
at a
agree.
WrestleMania to keep that momentum going.
Yeah, I would 100% agree. I would be disappointed to see Gunther and Kaiser at WrestleMania, and I don't think that'll be the case for what it's worth. I think it'll happen at some point. Again, could be a post WrestleMania beatdown that we see very so often. But at some point, we're gonna get that. And then this lastly brings us to our main event that we touched on a little bit earlier: Sami Zayn versus Seth Rollins. Before the match happens, Jey Uso is taking out. Sami Zayn is upset about it. He speculates Seth Rollins. We don't know who, as the audience, who it is. Any guesses on who we think took out Jey Uso?
I think they want you to believe it's Drew McIntyre. And it
Right.
very well could have just been Drew McIntyre, and that's was the big payoff and reveal. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. I think an intriguing answer that I've heard is that it could be Punk,
Mm,
which, would definitely, kind of make things a little interesting, I guess, from Punk's perspective. Does that mean Punk eventually goes heel and then
right.
it's Punk as a heel versus a face Seth Rollins or Roman Reigns? That would be a pretty interesting angle to take. But I think the obvious answer and the answer I'm going to stay with for now is Drew McIntyre.
Yeah, I agree. Drew McIntyre, who returns after being away since Bad Blood at the end of the show, attacking Sami Zayn. Uh, we don't get any clear indication on why he attacked Sami Zayn, but certainly that is the direction heading forward. Good to see Drew McIntyre back on the screen, and I am glad to see that he's getting away from the Seth Rollins stuff. Hopefully, that's what this means.
Yeah, I think the program now is Drew Sammy, which I think is a good like kind of
Mhm.
direction for both of them because it makes sense why Drew would go after Sammy. Like Drew was going after Sammy when he had his issues with the bloodline and
Mhm.
Sammy connected himself with the bloodline. Now Sammy has a connection to bloodline and his, biggest rival of the year, CM Punk. Like it's clear like Drew's probably had enough of Sammy
Yeah.
and all this stuff. So I think the promos that Drew can cut on Sammy are going to be great. And also Sammy bringing in his perspective and his great
Mhm.
performance will make this an intriguing feud for Drew because that was one of my big fears is that Drew would come back and not have a kind of substantial
Yeah.
program coming off of such a hot program with Punk. So I think this has, it has some juice to it. It's got some flavor. It's got some spice to it.
Mhm.
So I'm into this direction for Drew and Sammy going forward.
I have to say, Triple H and WWE have their hands full with booking these big shows because there's so many superstars that are over right now. Like I'm in my head, I'm like, what does Jey Uso do at WrestleMania? What does Drew McIntyre do at WrestleMania? What does Sami Zayn do at WrestleMania? Like, there's just too many damn people, and it's a good problem to have. Um, but yeah, they have it's a fun puzzle. It's a fun problem to have, I assume. But like, they're really gonna have to figure it all out, and I'm excited to see where it all goes.
I think I don't even know if this is a top rope take, but I'll call it a top rope take because it's very early. But they really do have the potential to have like an all time great Rumble match in
Hmm.
January. With all of the star power they have, I think the men's rumble this year could be very exciting if they're able to use it as a catalyst to tell stories for WrestleMania.
Yeah.
I think what was been lacking the past few years in the Rumble matches, even though some of them have been great, is that they haven't really told stories heading into WrestleMania.
Hmm.
So I feel like this year, if they realize how much star power they have, they can use that to their advantage in telling multiple stories leading into WrestleMania through the Rumble, which is what I've always loved the Rumble for.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be good. The Rumble will be exciting. They have way too many people to fill out that, especially because they're going to want to throw in some NXT people in there, some surprise returns. But I think long gone are the days of like the cheap pop returns, right? Where like you're not going to get like Hacksaw Jim Duggan in there for no reason. You know what I
You're
mean?
not
Like,
going to get the three commentators
yeah,
getting
yeah,
into the ring.
yeah,
But I do, it is an interesting thing because I think now the pops you can do in a Rumble match can lead to programs going forward. Like I would love to see a Trick Williams come in there while Carmelo Hayes is in the ring.
right.
I would love to see like we mentioned before, a Big E make his return
Hmm.
to lead to something at WrestleMania. I think there's a lot of things where you could still get that surprise pop, that big moment, and it still also leads to something else that we can look
Right,
forward to heading into WrestleMania.
right. Yeah, I don't think they're bringing in a lot of like outside talent anymore.
All right.
So, all right. Well, that is it for this episode of Monday Night Raw. It was a good one, a historical one we will remember for a long, long time. And then we have Saturday night's main event this Saturday, I believe,
Next
and
Saturday.
next Saturday.
Yeah.
And yeah, from there, I is the next PLE the Rumble?
XPLA is the Rumble. We also have World's End in between there for AEW. We have the
Mm,
debut of Netflix. And, stay tuned because we're definitely going to be doing some end of the year
yes,
uh top five lists. So be on the
top
lookout
five,
for
top
that.
five. Big East five count.
There you go.
There we go. In honor of our fallen New Day member, Big E. He's still alive. I don't know why I said it like
Yeah,
that.
yes, he's not dead, guys. Right?
Just to my heart.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we will see you all next week.
Peace.